Welcome back to the BTR Boxing Podcast Network. I'm your host, Sean, and on this episode, I'm joined by Charles Conwell, an American-based fighter who's doing phenomenally well in his boxing career so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where his career goes over the next couple of years. But for those that are listening that don't really know about Charles and his story, the UK-based listeners that might have not seen what Charles is doing in the ring at the moment, it'll be a good opportunity to really get to know what he's all about, where his career's at the moment, future fights that are on the horizon, and just a little bit of a background on yourself as well. So welcome, Charles. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come on the show.
Oh, yeah, for sure. No problem. Thanks for having me.
So let's get into it. Let's go straight into what you're all about. For those that don't know you, Charles,
Yeah.
what would be a good way of describing you in terms of your boxing journey?
That's a good question. I never really thought about it like that about my whole boxing journey. But as a fighter, I can say I'm an aggressive counterpuncher who, you know what I'm saying, I didn't been through it all. I didn't came from all the way from the bottom of the amateurs all the way to where I am today, which is, you know what I'm saying, a contender in the division.
And it all began when you was 11 years old. And something I found out about you recently was that you up sticks and you moved away an hour and a half away from your hometown to go and train at 13. That's how dedicated you were back then to get yourself into this sport. Is that right? What was that like for you?
I ain't gonna say I was dedicated because it wasn't really my idea. It was really my father's idea. He thought it would be good for me to go somewhere where boxing is 100% all they do, and it worked out thus far. So I appreciate that from him.
So what was it like then growing up? Was boxing on the forefront of your horizon? I know obviously it was very much your father's idea, but
Yeah.
as a kid at that age, was that something you was really interested in?
When I first started boxing, I really wasn't. It was just something to do because we didn't have really much else to do. So my father just asked us one day, "Do we want to go to the boxing gym?" But if we started, we couldn't quit until he was 18. So I said, yeah, it was just one of those summers that he didn't want to sit in the house doing nothing all day. So he signed us up for the boxing team. And from there, I just fell in love with the sport, developed, trained hard, worked hard, and made it to the top.
Well, you go into the top. That's certainly something, those that have been watching your career so far will probably say, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on about where things are at. But going back to your amateur career, going all the way back, it probably feels like many, many years ago now. But you had a relatively successful amateur career. You obviously went to the 2016 Olympics, had a controversial loss in the first round, and from there it was all about moving into the professional side of the sport. It didn't work out in the Olympics. What was the experience like though for you, Charles?
To be honest, now looking back at it, everything just really happened so fast, like for me. I was 17, 18 years old, and everything was just moving so fast. Like I never really got the chance to even. Now that I think back about it, I never really got the chance to even enjoy like the process I was going through, going to the Olympics and traveling overseas and all that stuff. It just happened so fast. I was like 17, 18 years old, and then from there it's like boom, train for Olympics, boom, qualify for the Olympics, boom, at the Olympics, boom, Olympics over. Everything just happened real fast. Now that I'm looking back at it.
Because you've come a long way since then, and you've still got a long way to go, of course, with where you want your career to go. And moving into the professional side of the sport, of course, you started off phenomenally well. 7 fights in the first year, which is great. It's a great way to start your career. You're getting in the ring, getting active, being active, staying active. Really important part of building the foundations for the future of your career. And then obviously things started to hit a little bit of snag, and there was moments that happened throughout the course of your career which have really, I think, shaped the way things are today for you. And I know there's for those that probably don't know, and apologies to bring it up, Charles, because I know you probably had to speak about this, you probably had to have these conversations, and I won't go too deep into the conversation, but there was one particular moment in the 11 professional fight against Patrick Day, which was well documented at the time, really, really difficult period in your life, and something that you really had to overcome. So I'm not going to focus on the fight itself. I'm more focusing on the adversity that you have to overcome as a result of that particular fight and the aftermath of that particular fight. I know that's something that's deeply traumatic for any individual, especially someone that's in there doing what they've had to do. But you've overcome that adversity and you've been involved with a lot of mental health work. And I'm just wondering, like, how that has gone for you and how that's helped shape your career to date where you are now.
Yeah, like you said, it was like a real big thing for my mental health. It just for it shaped me as a fighter, like just to take the sport that much more serious. You know, when you coming up boxing, it's just a sport. It's like it's just something that you do now that I've been through such a traumatic experience. It just makes me want to, you know what I'm saying, take the sport that much more serious and really really like train like my life is online because it is each and every time you go out in the ring. So I just really like take the sport real serious and make sure I just stay mentally strong and just have good people around you and things like that. Because boxing is a real tough sport. It's the hardest sport in the world, and not just even the physical training, just like the mental side of boxing too, pushing yourself to when you want to stop and just all that other kind of stuff. So yeah.
And obviously, as a result, you had to take some time away from the ring to rebuild yourself as a human being first and foremost before you got back into the ring. And then you started getting involved in really interesting fights, really significant fights. But then your career took a stall again, didn't it? With issues outside of the ring, out of your control. So what happened there particularly that really hindered your career and has kind of stalled it a little bit?
Just going through a lot of I don't really want to speak on it too much. Just going through a lot of managerial and promotional issues. Just really held up my career. Just getting my team back together and getting the people that wanted the best for me around me and people who wanted to see me do well and put me in better position as a fighter.
And that's exactly where I believe you are at the moment. You've obviously returned to the ring last year with big victories. 3 big victories last year, which has put you in a really good position. Now we're in 2025, and it's a really good way of coming into that conversation now around 2025 and goals and aspirations. And one of the things that I saw on social media only a few days ago, floating around all the different boxing accounts, was the fact that the Errol Spence and Sebastian Fundora fight was off and it wasn't happening anymore, and negotiations were done. And then the first person's name I saw touted to be the replacement for Errol Spence was yours. So
Yeah.
talk to me about that. Talk to me about where that's at. Is there any movement in that? Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I really just got considered asking if the opportunity presented itself, would I take it? And I told him yeah. So that's basically what it was. And I haven't heard anything further yet. So we just waiting to hear back or waiting to see what happens next.
Do you think you're ready for that fight now?
Yeah, I think I'm ready for that fight. I think 27 years old, 21 fights. I mean, where else can I go? I can keep fighting these guys at this level right here, or I can keep pushing forward and going for world title shots and title eliminators and things like that. So it's like where do I go from here?
And Fundora is an opponent. When I saw him a few years ago, I was really taken aback by his size for the division and it was really one of those moments where you think, is he really that weight? How does he make that weight? But yet he's come through some really tough moments himself in his boxing career, and he's in a position now where he's bounced back from that adversity. A fighter like Fundora, how do you prepare for somebody like him?
Man, you just come up with a game plan, you and your team, and you just go in there the gym and you work on it every day. You go in there and you prep, you do all the things you do, you work hard, you train hard, you listen to your coaches, and you get the job done.
And when you bring people in to kind of replicate what he is, it must be really difficult. You must be finding guys that are like one or two weights above, surely.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't fight him. I'm not trained to fight him yet. So, but if I had to, that's what has to be done. Because, like you said, he's massive for the weight class. There's not really many people in the weight class that's his size or his height. So.
When you was an amateur, did you ever come across fighters, with completely different styles and completely different physical shapes that you had to get in the ring there with kind of little information about? Is that something that I know a lot of guys have said that to me, like you just kind of fighting every day or every other day or every other week, and you just don't even know who you're fighting. You're just getting in there and you're just adapting to what goes in. But when you've got a world title fight on hand, you've got time to prepare for someone like that. And I know obviously nothing's been finalized and nothing's been moved further forward since your name's been dropped in for Fundora, but I'm sure, the experiences that you've had in the amateurs surely will put you in good stead to face someone like him.
Yeah, I done fought guys taller than me. I done fought guys my height, fought guys shorter than me. So, like you said, with a lot of amateur experience, you get to see a lot of different things. But I just think the amateurs and the pros is two totally different things. To be honest, man, it's the same. It's like going from it's amateur and pro. It's like going from playing in middle school league to going to the NBA. It's like totally two different things. So, but
A lot of fighters say that to me. I've interviewed hundreds of fighters over the years, and they say very similar things. What specifically is it like in your mind? And I'm asking for an opinion because I know everybody has a different interpretation of the difference between amateur and pro. What is it in your mind that stands out that's so different when you're an amateur to turning pro?
there's a lot of differences. It's the seriousness of the sport. It's a business now. The speed of the speed of the fights. Amateur fight real more faster pace and slow down a lot. The longer rounds, smaller gloves, no headgear. I mean, setting up shots instead of just going out there, you know what I mean, breaking the guy down. This is a whole big difference from amateur to pro.
Now, in terms of your career, obviously, we've talked about the potential of a Fundora fight. There's nothing, in stone yet. But for any reason that doesn't happen and you get bypassed and somebody else gets put in place, what would your goals and aspirations be then for this year?
I would like to fight somebody who was ex-world champion or a world champion challenger or something like that, title eliminator, and then a title shot. So that's like my goals for the year. For this year, I would like to get ex-world champion or a title challenger, and then get a title eliminator, and then go to the world title or something like that, or
I think you're definitely in a position, obviously, with the division where you can certainly move forward to get those type of fights because, there's a lot of movement going around, as you know, in boxing at the moment with weight divisions, people coming up and going down and looking for these, these bigger paydays, these bigger fights. I think it's leaving the division a little bit more open for yourself. I know one of your stable mates, Virgil Ortiz Jr., previously a welterweight, now up in this division. There's a potential that there's a fight with him down the line as well, isn't there?
yeah, I think that's a fight that definitely can be made. Like you said, same network, same promotional company is a fight that can be made easier than I think a lot of other fights out there.
And again, I know it's all theoretical. I know we're talking, of a future potential fight with someone like him, but you know, where you're at in your career now, the adversity you've overcome, the fights you've been involved in, do you feel like you're genuinely ready to sort of take that step forward now into that realm of fighting these guys that are kind of being given the sort of the favor against you? So you're going in there as an underdog, you're going in there in the away corner essentially.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. It's like I said earlier, where do I go from where I'm at now? That I can't keep doing the same thing I'm doing. I gotta keep progressing. So those are the next steps in my career. Like there's no more easy fights for me. There's no more, you know what I'm saying? I gotta keep progressing. I gotta keep moving forward. I gotta keep getting bigger and better fights. So that's what I think is next for me. I think that's the only place I can go, or you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Totally agree. You've got to move forward. And like I said at the start of the show, for those that, are UK based that have not saw any of your fights or I've only saw a little of you, I'm imploring them to go and watch because, I've followed your career for a few years and it was because of Luca who introduced me to you and what you were doing and where your career was at. And he told me, look out for this guy. He's a guy that I think is going to go far in the sport. And here we are. We're at a moment where I think 2025 has got to be a changer for your career. It's got to be you get pushed into big fights now because you've had the issues outside of the ring out of your control where, you know, you've lost a year and a half, nearly 2 years of your boxing career. And yeah, you're still young, you're still 27, you still might not even technically be in the prime of your boxing career yet. So there's still many things to come from yourself. So I think it'd be the perfect year really for you to be put into that position where you can actually fight those guys that'll either you'll get a world title shot or you'll be fighting, like you said earlier, ex-world title contenders, ex-world champions. I think those are the fights that are really important for you this year. And as you've rightly pointed out as well, you could go back to just fighting guys that are ranked top 20, top 30 in the world, but where is it going to progress you? Where is it going to take you? It's not going to move you forward. It's just going to keep you in the
Mm.
same place. So to move forward, you've got to do that. Now you've had a change outside of the ring with obviously management, and the people that are around you are people that are looking after your best interests. Are you genuinely confident now within that that's actually going to be the step forward that's going to take you either this year or next year to a world title?
Yeah, I think so. I think, like you said, I think I just been way more consistent with my career as far as the second half of my career. I feel like this is a whole new chapter and everything's been running so smooth as of lately. It can only get better. And I can only get better as a fighter. But I think, yeah, I think this team I got now is definitely pushing me towards bigger and better fights and wants to see the best from me. So yeah, I have to say so. Yes.
Yeah, it's got to happen, hasn't it? It ultimately has got to happen. And I think what I was about to say was like you look at like where things are at now for you. It's a step to that next level. It's a jumping up to that next level that is so important this year. And I think with you having the right people around, with you being signed, with you being in a position where you are getting fantastic exposure, this is where I think it's going to take a big step forward for you this year. And I think, though, again, I say to those that are listening to the show that are watching this on YouTube, you need to check out Charles's career. You need to see sort of where he is in his career now, because he's certainly a fighter that I think, has got the potential to be a world champion in the next year or so. But if that doesn't happen, Charles, for you this year, if you don't get the opportunity to fight for a world title this year, in your mind, what would be the ideal scenario this year, in terms of the number of fights, the type of fights that you're going to get involved in?
Yeah. I think just I would still like to do what I'm doing now, stay consistent. And if I can't get a world title shot, like I said, give me those world title contenders, world title ex champions, those type of fights. The fights that push me into a position to get the world title.
Absolutely. So before we come to the end of this conversation, I know I've focused a lot on different elements of your career and different things that have gone on outside of the ring, but I think it's a great opportunity, like when you're in the position you're in, to really sort of push those out there that have been supported and push those. Like they have sponsorship contracts. We have people that are supporting the career. We have people behind the scenes that don't normally get the recognition that maybe they deserve for pushing things forward. Are there individuals, companies that you'd want to plug on the show that have really sort of helped you start to take that next step forward?
Yeah, we talking to people to get bigger and better opportunities, and to push myself out there more to get, what I'm saying, more exposure and things like that. So we definitely pushing for those things in the next steps of my career.
And for those, again, that haven't followed your boxing journey so far, those that want to follow you on social media, those that want to start tuning into your career, where can they find you on social media to follow your journey?
You can follow me on all social media platforms at Charles Conwell, just my first and last name.
Pretty straightforward.
Yes,
Do you know
sir.
what, Charles? It's been great. I've really enjoyed this little whistle stop tour of getting to know a bit more about you and your career, and I know I can feel like where you're at, and I can feel like the anticipation of you just wanting to get in there and get these big fights now. And I'm genuinely excited to see where your career goes this year. And I'm sure those that have been listening that I already know about you will be tuning in. Those that don't, it's a good opportunity if you tune in and see somebody that can potentially be a world champion either by the end of this year or the end of next. So thank you, Charles, for coming on the show.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you and thanks for having me on.